have Louis Otieno, Regional Director, Business Development and Strategy for Microsoft in Africa. We've got Martin Butler from University of Stellenbosch, and Gerald, who's the VP for Nokia, South and East Africa.
Correct.
So we'll take it from the top. What stood out for you guys? Maybe we could start with Louis in the enterprise presentations.
No, I liked a lot of them because essentially what they did, noting that we're in Africa, a lot of them were dealing with the fundamental issues, okay? Mm-hmm. Extending technology to those who not necessarily have the sophisticated devices and things like those. So I like the fact that they were dealing with the fundamental stuff and then you can build from there. That stuck out for me.
Martin?
I think they are clearly not as sexy as some of your mobile applications, so the demo is not that easy. You need to be very polished in the demo, and I think we saw a couple of very good demos. I think they are addressing real problems. I was extremely impressed. I think whenever a pitch started and they say what they are addressing, I stood there nodding my head knowing that it's a real issue. And then on the negative side, I think there was a little bit of vagueness in terms of the revenue models. We can all guess the revenue models, but once or twice I asked myself, so exactly how are you going to fund this worthy application that you're bringing out?
Oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah, I think some general comments. The first thing is all the applications were addressing real business issues, and I think you've mentioned that. So I think that's a great testament to the guys understanding what corporates need. I think that's great. And I think some of the presentations were clearer in terms of how they actually translate those benefits into reality. So some of the presentations you left with a clear sense of I understand this, mm-hmm. and I have a sense of how it actually works, whereas some of the presentations weren't perhaps as clear.
Oh, awesome. Now, Martin brings up a good point when he says some of the business models are not very clear, yet, which informs my next question in terms of startups in the enterprise space. You notice that Balefire, for example, has gotten funding of $2 million and is looking for $5 million, and Flowgear are at $200,000. Yet, if you can't really define how you're going to make money, is there a fighting chance for startups looking to actually enter into the enterprise space, do you think? Louis?
Yeah. I think that's a legit concern. I mean, I think we need to spend some time understanding the models. How you can hook up shared models or any different type of models to be able to recover some of the investment that you're asking people to do. Otherwise, it's very difficult in this kind of scenario for somebody to commit or make an investment without getting a sense of how exactly am I going to be getting the money back. So some kind of effort needs to be put towards that.
Balefire, they have a real-life example where they have some demonstrable success with a particular corporate. So they're perhaps in a different position versus some of the other presentations and the companies that we saw. And I think from a Nokia perspective, we have some experience with Balefires, and we have a bit more intimacy in terms of how that solution actually works. So I think that's one thing that stood out. I think the other company that was, what stood out to me was Flowgear. I think there's a real need to be able to combine best-of-breed solutions and technologies and have it integrated in one solution. So I think that sounded really interesting to me.
Okay. I mean, I'll quickly add that maybe iPay probably has a more straightforward way of coming up with a model because there's an opportunity here for transactional kind of thing. Okay, so that's a little bit clearer in terms of understanding the scope of your opportunity and then figuring out and making a transaction-based kind of model.
Martin, from say a university perspective, how would you say package that sort of knowledge now to say students who are now progressing and leaving say University of Stellenbosch? Because we understand you have a program that empowers students in that way. How do you see your role changing in terms of addressing this sort of need?
It's a challenge. To have 5 or 6 minutes to do a pitch is a challenge. And in a university, you have students for a lengthy period. Of course, many of the entrepreneurial spirit and the issues and the energy and the drive, you don't necessarily cultivate at university. So I think what we try to do is just to provide the knowledge, the background, and also to put things into balance. And I think it comes back to the revenue issue. You can't spend a huge amount of time to discuss the revenue stream. but it is important if you're doing a pitch for VCs. Of course, they need to fall in love with your technology as well, and they need to buy into that you're solving something. But it's part of the puzzle. And I think what we're seeing in the higher education space at the moment is there's also pressure or an emphasis from the entrepreneurs as well to say, please make us a well-rounded individual that is able to do something within the technology space, but also hold my own around a negotiation table with potential partners, and also when I'm meeting with the VCs and the bankers. So there's a fairly wide skill set that you need to survive. And I think you alluded to it, even some of the pitches. I thought the Flow Gear and the iPay pitches were exceptionally good. They were well rehearsed, and not only do they have excellent technology, they also presented it in a manner that I think the entire audience bought into their product. And that takes some doing.
Maybe back to you again. Do you think academia in Africa is actually doing enough to create enough, sufficiently competent entrepreneurs to actually see the need for that sort of finesse in the sort of work they do?
I'll try to give you a short answer. It's no. We're not. But I can tell you that we are experiencing tremendous pressure from our clients to do that. So whereas 5 years ago to say to you, no, we're not, I can tell you, no, we're not at the moment, but we are seeing and we are hearing, and our clients are asking us and saying, is this, please, you want to send us out there in the business world? I think the pitch this morning say it's Africa's time, it's time for us. iPay is a lovely example of an African solution to integrate some of the unique regional products, and they have a unique selling proposition on any other payment aggregator. So our clients, our students are asking us to ensure that we empower them, that we enable them to do all of this. And I think we're heading in the right direction. I think the message has landed loud and clear in academia, that we also need to move away from the old school and the content dumping and really have a more kind of collaborative education approach. And what I really see in universities, which is very encouraging, is a closer cooperation with all the industries out there, with the likes of Nokia and all these organizations, where that is no longer frowned upon in the academic world, but it's really encouraged. Say there's also a subset of knowledge in there that enriches our students' thinking.
So you would say that there is a problem with the curriculum, or just the entire process of educating in the new age, quote unquote?
You see, the challenge is not necessarily the content. The content you continuously work on, but it's also the learning process. And it's also, I was thinking there's one or two of the people that made it pitch here. I want to have them in our classroom in the next couple of weeks, and I'm going to approach them. So yes, it's the content what we do. It's also the learning process that we do. I want to give you a stunning example. As in academia, there's a question: should students be quoting from Wikipedia? And I'm saying you're asking the wrong question. We're asking is, why are students not contributing to Wikipedia? So it's the process of how do we deliver that. The content is always going to change with the times, but the delivery process, we are seeing a massive change in how we do that with our students.
Excellent. Now to Nokia. And Nokia and Microsoft are now synonymous. So this will be to both of you. Nokia has a big announcement happening this evening with a massive partnership with the government of Kenya. The challenge remains, how do you now get technology entrepreneurs wanting to, say, engage in that ecosystem? Plugging in and saying, yes, it's a Nokia partnership with the government of Kenya. How does that, say, the government, any other government in Africa, how does that now trickle down? Or how would you advise technology entrepreneurs to now plug into that sort of ecosystem to be able to now almost ride on the wings of eagles and sort of like grow their businesses? You saw Firestring, their main agenda was to almost be integrated into other enterprise systems, and that's their value add into that. How do you see that happening?
Absolutely no shortage of innovation and energy to create solutions for Africans. Often the challenge is something that you spoke about: business mentorship and helping the entrepreneurs take that product to market. I think that's the one challenge. And the second thing is funding, and that's why we're here today. But just to reflect on the partnership that we'll be signing with the Kenya government tonight, it's formalizing a lot of different initiatives that we've been working with them in the space of education, health, agriculture, and in the broader ecosystem, and putting together a framework which gives us a roadmap over a time period in terms of what we want to achieve. So it's very, very strategic for us, and it demonstrates our commitment to benefit the community at large. So that's a bit of the background behind it.
It's about relevance, okay? It's about relevance. If we get the entrepreneurs dealing with the opportunities, creating the solutions that are relevant for government as well as for business, then we have a win-win-win situation. I think what I find a lot of happening in a lot of parts of Africa is the fact that there's innovation and there's development for the sake of development. I recently sat in a session with young people when I asked in a group of 100 people, has anybody read the Vision 2030 document, which is a strategy document in this country? Not a single one of them could raise their hand. So you begin to wonder what they're doing with their innovative energy and entrepreneurship. So it's as simple as that. When you have government working with private sector, basically communicating the direction in terms of where they're going to be committing resources to, then it's an opportunity for the entrepreneurs to sit out there and say, which part of this should I play in? And if they do that, then it's a win-win-win situation.
Excellent. So I think that we'll wrap it up there. We've seen clearly that one of the key things that anyone dealing in the enterprise space must address is, one, ensure you have your business model down to a T, ensure that you're seeking out the right partnerships and the right mentorships. And we've also seen that, yes, education in terms of the service providers, the universities and the colleges are actually changing or adapting to the times. And I think we should start seeing more activity in the enterprise space, because looking at the tech ecosystem in Africa, we see a lot of consumer-facing companies, and less and less of these guys who actually sit in the back and do the sort of really cool integrations like the likes of Flowgear are doing. And I mean, with time, if you start developing those, we'll actually see a lot more development in the tech space.
In fact, I would be interested in seeing Balefire, Firestring, Flowgear work together. I mean, they're not too far away from each other. It would be interesting what they would be able to come up with. So, yeah, just want to make a comment.
There you have it. So, the guys, straight from the horse's mouth, you can actually look at synergies and working together and follow him up to figure out exactly what he means by that working together. In closing, you had something to say?
Yeah, I was just going to, that positioning of Firestring as the Google of the enterprise or business segment is really, really interesting. And I think, Louis alluded to perhaps some areas that we need to dig into a bit of detail, because that could be one very interesting concept, but we didn't quite get a clear sense of how it worked. I think that's perhaps the piece that we need to get into a bit more detail.
Make sure you communicate how it works, the sort of value it brings on board. Excellent. Round of applause for our sages, please.